the 6th chapter of Matilda. The chapter title is The Platinum Blonde Man. There was no doubt in Matilda's mind that this latest display of foulness by her father deserved severe punishment as she sat there eating her awful fried fish and her fried chips and ignoring the television. Her brain went to work on various possibilities. By the time she went up to her bed, her mind was made up. The next morning, she got up early, went into the bathroom, and locked the door. As we already know, Mrs. Wormwood's hair was dyed a brilliant platinum blonde, very much the same glistening silver color as a female tightrope walker's tights in the circus. The dyeing job was done twice a year by the hairdresser, but every month in between, Mrs. Wormwood would freshen it up by giving a rinse in the wash basin with something called platinum blonde hair dye, extra strong. This also served to dye the nasty brown hairs that kept growing up from the roots. The bottle of platinum blonde hair dye, extra strong, was kept in the cupboard in the bathroom, was underneath the title on the label, and the words read, "Caution, this is peroxide, keep away from children." Matilda read it many times with fascination. Matilda's father had a fine crop of black hair, which he parted in the middle and which he was exceedingly proud of. Good, strong hair, he was fond of saying, means there's a good, strong brain underneath. Like Shakespeare, Matilda had once said to him. Like who? Shakespeare, Daddy. Was he brainy? Very, Daddy. He had masses of hair, did he? He was bald, Daddy. To which the father snapped, "If you can't talk sense, then shut up." So there's Matilda and her dad. Anyway, Mr. Wormwood kept his hair from looking bright and strong, so he thought, by rubbing into it every morning large quantities of lotion called Violet's Hair Tonic, a bottle of smelly purple mixture which always stood on the shelf by the sink of the bathroom, by all the toothbrushes, and he very vigorously massaged his scalp of oil of violets, took place day after day after he was shaving. This hair and scalp massage was always accompanied by loud masculine grunts, heavy breathing, and gasps of, "Ah, that's better, that's the stuff, rub it right into the roots," which Matilda clearly heard in her bedroom across the corridor. Now, in the early morning privacy of the bathroom, Matilda unscrewed the cap of her father's oil of violets, tipped 3/4 of the contents down the drain. Then she filled the bottle up with her mother's platinum blonde hair dye, extra strong. She carefully left enough of her father's original hair tonic in the bottle so that when she gave it a good shake, the whole thing still looked reasonably purple. She then replaced the bottle on the shelf by the sink, taking care of her mother's bottle back in the cupboard. So far, so good. At breakfast time, Matilda sat quietly at the dining room table, eating her cornflakes. Her brother sat opposite with her to the back door, devouring hunks of bread smothered with a mixture of peanut butter and strawberry jam. The mother was just out of sight around the corner in the kitchen making Mr. Wormwood's breakfast, which always had to be 2 fried eggs on fried bread and 3 pork sausages and 3 strips of bacon with some fried tomatoes. At this point, Mr. Wormwood came noisily into the room. He was incapable of entering the room quietly, especially at breakfast time. He always had to make an appearance that fell immediately by creating lots of noise and clatter. One could almost hear him say, "It's me, here I come." That's Mr. Wormwood rubbing a tonic into his head. "Here I come, the man himself, the master of the house, the wage earner, the one who makes it possible for all of the rest of you to live so well. Notice me, pay attention, pay your respects." On the occasion, he strode in, slapped his son on the back, and shouted, "Well, my boy, your father feels he's in another great money-making day today at the garage. I've got a few little beauties I'm going to flog to the idiots this morning. Where's my breakfast?" "It's coming, Treasure," Mrs. Wormwood called from the kitchen. Matilda kept her face bent low over the cornflakes. She didn't dare to look up in the first place. She didn't dare to look up in the first place. She wasn't at all sure what she was going to see. She wouldn't trust herself to keep a straight face. The sun was looking directly ahead out the window, stuffing himself with the bread, peanut butter, and strawberry jam. The father was just moving around to sit at the head of the table when the mother came sweeping out from the kitchen carrying a huge plate piled with eggs, sausages, bacon, tomatoes. She looked up. She caught sight of her husband. She stopped dead. She let out a scream that seemed to lift her right up into the air. She dropped everything with a crash, a splash, onto the floor. Everyone jumped, including Mr. Wormwood. "What's the matter with you, woman?" he shouted. "Look at the mess you've made on the carpet." So this is Mrs. Wormwood. What do you think she saw? "Your hair!" the mother said, shrieking, pointing, quivering a finger at her husband. "Look at your hair! What have you done to your hair?" "What's wrong with my hair, for heaven's sake?" he said. "Oh, Dad, what have you done?" the son shouted. A splendid, noisy scene was building up nicely in the breakfast room. Matilda said nothing. She simply sat there admiring the wonderful effect of her handiwork. Mr. Wormwood's fine crop of black hair, now dirty silver. The color this time of a tightrope walker's tights that had not been washed for the entire circus season. You've dyed it!" shrieked the mother. "Why did you do that? It looks absolutely frightful. It looks horrendous. You look like a freak." "What in blazes are you talking about?" the father yelled, putting both hands on his hair. "I most certainly did not dye it." What do you mean I've dyed it? What's happened to it? Or is this some type of joke?" His face was turning pale green, the color of sour apples. "You must have dyed it, Dad," the son said. "It's the same color as Mom's, only much dirtier looking." "Of course he's dyed it," the mother cried. "It can't change color all by itself. What on earth were you trying to do? Make yourself look handsome or something? You look like someone's grandmother." "Get me the mirror," the father yelled. "Don't just stand there shrieking at me. Get me the mirror." The mother's handbag lay on the chair on the other end of the table. She opened the bag, got out a powder compact that had a small round mirror on the inside of the lid. She opened the compact and handed it to her husband. She grabbed it, held it before his face, in doing so spilled most of the powder all over the front of his fancy tweed jacket. "Be careful," shrieked the mother. "Now look what you've done to my best Elizabeth Arden face powder." "Oh my gosh," yelled the father, staring into the little mirror. "What's happened to me? I look terrible. I look like you've just gone wrong. I can't go down to the garage like this and sell cars. How did this happen?" He stared around the room, first at the mother, then at the son, then at Matilda. How could it had happened?" he yelled. "I imagine, Daddy," Matilda said quietly, "that you weren't looking very hard, and you simply took Mommy's bottle of hair stuff off the shelf instead of your own." "Of course that's what happened," the mother cried. "Well, really, Harry, how stupid can you get? Why didn't you read the label before you started splashing the stuff all over you? Mine's terribly strong. I only meant to use 1 tablespoon of a whole water basin, and you've got to put it all over your head. It'll probably take off your hair by the end." "Is your scalp beginning to burn, dear?" "You mean I'm going to lose all my hair?" the husband yelled. "I think you will," the mother said. "Peroxide is a very powerful chemical. It's what they put down at the laboratory to disinfect the pan, only they give it another name." "What are you saying?" the husband cried. "I'm not a lavatory pan." Lavatory means bathroom. "Even diluted, like I use it," the mother told him. "It makes a good deal of my hair fall out, so goodness knows what will happen to you. I'm surprised it didn't take all the whole top of your head off." "What shall I do?" wailed the father. "Tell me quick, what do I do before it starts falling out?" Matilda said, "I'd give it a good wash, Dad, if I were you, with soap and water, but you'll have to hurry." "Will it change the color back?" the father asked anxiously. "Of course it won't, you twit," the mother said. "Then what will I do? I can't go around looking like this forever." "You'll have to dye it black," the mother said. "But wash it off first, or there won't be anything to dye." "Right," the father shouted, springing into action. "Get me an appointment with your hairdresser this instant for a dyeing job. Tell them it's an emergency. They've got to boot someone else off their list. I'm going upstairs to wash it now." With that, the man dashed out of the room, and Mrs. Wormwood, sighing deeply, made a telephone call to the beauty parlor. "He does some pretty silly things now and again, doesn't he, Mummy?" Matilda said. The mother, dialing the phone number, said, "I'm afraid men are not always quite as clever as they think you are. You will learn that when you're a bit older." There's Matilda.